Hello, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
Live long and prosper. Peace and love. Thank you. So, my name is Benjamin Teitz. I am a registered psychological associate and psychology doctoral candidate. I am the ship's counselor of the USS Yakuza, which is the Orange County chapter of Star Trek The Fleet, a costuming and charity fan group. We have some of our crew members and fleet members here, both on stage and off stage. So they are sponsoring this panel because we want to share all the goodness of Trek to everybody. I am also the co-host of two mental health related podcasts, one of which my co-host will talk about, but my other one is called My Hero Therapy, where we talk about the My Hero Academia anime and mental health psychology. Why don't we go down the table? Everybody can introduce themselves and say who you are and why you're here.
All right, so I'm Charlene McPherson. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I'm from Maryland. I run my own company named Nerd Adventure Therapy 20, which abbreviates to Nat 20 Therapy. Anybody that's a D&D nerd? I run adult groups, D&D adult groups, social skills groups, therapy groups. I do a podcast with Benjamin called Mental Health Quest, and we just talk about mental health and how to access it, what it looks like, what it feels like for what our clients have told us and things like that. Just kind of making it more accessible, the information more accessible.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Al-Ahmed. I'm an astrophysicist, but I'm also the host of a podcast called Planetary Radio. It's the Planetary Society's podcast. We come out each week. The Planetary Society is the world's largest nonprofit dedicated to the advancement of space science and exploration. It was founded by Carl Sagan and some of his buddies, now run by my boss, Bill Nye the Science Guy, who is fantastic. And we have a long history with Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry actually advocated for our organization, told all of the people that love Star Trek to join us, because we are trying to make that a reality. We want to explore other worlds, seek life among the stars, and hopefully protect our planet from impacts from comets and other objects. That's kind of important as well. But Star Trek is... Well, yeah, that too. But thankfully, there are other wonderful organizations that are dedicated solely to that. But that is why I'm here, because Star Trek literally is the reason I got into astrophysics. Yeah,
That is pretty cool. My name is Denise Baker. I am the captain of the USS Quest, which is the Long Beach chapter of Star Trek The Fleet, and I am also a registered nurse.
My name is Travis Baker. I'm her husband of almost 3 months. 3 months tomorrow. I'm a recent MFA graduate from the Loyola Marymount University School of Film and Television with a degree in writing. Oh, go Lions! Go Lions! With a degree in writing, producing for television. I am a screenwriter. I am a 2-time quarterfinalist in the Austin Film Festival screenwriting competition, including which includes the one that happened this year. I was in Austin last October. I guess I'm going to talk about TV and film for this topic on this panel.
Hey everyone, so this handsome rogue you see before you is Dr. Isaac Teitz. Yes, relation to my brother Benjamin Teitz. I'm the head psychologist and president of All Mind Health. It's a clinical psychological practice here in California, in person or via telehealth, working with kids, adults, vets, geeks of all ages on various topics like OCD, insomnia, trauma, you name it, we psych it.
So with this panel, we have people from all different professional walks of life, and I want us to talk a little bit about, first of all, which is your favorite series / captain? Mine is actually Deep Space Nine and Captain Sisko, though like Janeway also is like up there too. I just didn't like Voyager, the whole series. I love Janeway more than I love the series Voyager. But Deep Space Nine, because it talked a lot about more interpersonal relationships and like parenting and so many more things that aren't normally talked about in Trek. So maybe we can start off back with Dr. Teitz and work our way up. What's your favorite series / captain and why?
So, even though I'm dressed as Han Solo, I definitely still love Trek. I'm just doing this to razz you all. and you'll see the same when we do the Star Trek panel tomorrow. Ben will keep his Star Trek uniform on. So you got to go with your first Trek, and that's TNG. Mainly just because you have such amazing actors there, and who better than the Shakespearean-trained master himself, Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart. Just a fantastic grasp of the theater, of the gravitas of every element of what they were dealing with, but well balanced with, all these other characters that are interacting with each other, and particularly the therapist, the counselor Deanna Troi, who we'll be talking about a little bit more later.
My favorite Trek is also DS9, and I would say, in my opinion, the best captain is Sisko, although I do have a soft spot for Archer, and I think it's because Enterprise was the first Trek I really paid attention to as a kid. Also, his name is Jonathan, my dad's name was Jonathan, his pilot name was Travis, my name was Travis, so I had a weird identification with Travis as me and Archer is my dad. And my dad also had a temper like Archer did, so has a temper. He's still alive, thankfully.
So my favorite Trek is Lower Decks. Big fan of Lower Decks. And my favorite captain is Jean-Luc Picard. He breaks so many Starfleet regulations, and yet he's still seen as the formal, proper guy, which is absolutely hilarious to me on another level.
Right up until we get into Picard, and then no one respects him about anything. But yeah, fair point.
He's still disrespected
All the time.
Yeah.
Prime Directive. But yeah, it's a really hard call. I'd say Next Generation was the one that really sparked my interest as a kid. My mom was a huge Star Trek fan with the original series, so as soon as Next Generation came out, she gave it to the Next Generation, and I was immediately in love. It completely changed my life, but it wasn't until Janeway became captain that I really kind of felt empowered to kind of chase that. I remember having this conversation with my mom where she was like, look at her. She's a woman. She is captaining the spaceship. You can too, right? And I've heard in other moments that Janeway has had, this same interaction with so many young women and girls over the years. So I feel like, despite the fact that I feel like Picard is probably my favorite captain, Janeway probably had the biggest influence over me as a captain, I think. Yeah.
I love that story.
Yeah.
It's so empowering. I love it. Sorry, but mine is DS9. I don't know why everybody's picked DS9. I thought I was the only one, but I do like Picard as the favorite captain. I mean, Patrick Stewart. You can't get any better than that. The reason why I like DS9 is actually because of Garrick.
Yeah.
If you give me a sarcastic, bad guy kind of in the middle, good guy, bad guy, you're not sure, maybe he'll change, who knows, that's my character, and I just love him to death. So any episode that he's in, I'm right there watching it.
It's funny that you mentioned that Garrick had that impact, because he also had that impact for me, because he's so different than any other character in all of Trek, because he does not play by your rules. He has his own rules, and he can see that, okay, well, you have these ideals, but you're not living up to them in your own life, so might as well do what you want anyways. I also just love his interactions with Bashir. Those were the most hilarious and adorable interactions. I wish they would have canonically gotten together, but that's okay. They, in fan fiction, they did, and I may or may not have read a lot of those.
I may or may not have written some of them.
Well, that's what fan fiction is for, and that's what Star Trek allows us. Is it gives us these ideas of how we want the future to look like for us. And one thing I also like about Deep Space Nine is, so yes, Next Gen had Counselor Troi. She was a very proper, very well put together, well controlled therapist, which is good. She was very, well managed of her responses in therapy. I really loved Esri Dax as a counselor because she was struggling.
Yeah.
She always knew what she wanted to be a counselor, but then when she had the symbiotically attached to her, I don't know
Yeah.
what the medical terminology
Joined.
is.
She was joined.
Joined, yes,
She was
thank
joined.
you. Oh, my
Yes.
brain
Yes.
is, it's not Monday, but I'm going to call it Monday. It's Monday somewhere. On Vulcan, it's Monday.
Some timeline.
Yeah. So, but her struggles is trying to figure out who she is, and that imposter syndrome is something that me as a therapist, I'm still a trainee therapist. I'm just like Esri. I'm still in training, and I'm being put into this place where I need to treat people who have really complex issues. And so I really admired how she struggled. She thought she was going to quit, but then she didn't, because that was me in a nutshell. So I can talk more about myself, but I want to hear from each panelist what you see of your own career in Trek. How is it your career represented, both good and bad? And like, how has that, if at all, inspired you to pursue your career?
Yeah, well, I have one of those unique careers that is very much represented in Star Trek, which is why it resonated so much with me as a kid. I wanted to be a science officer. I wanted to do astrometrics. I wanted to look out and discover things that we'd never discovered before. And of course, we're very limited with our human technology. We're only just beginning to take our steps off of this planet and explore beyond. We've only flown past Neptune and Uranus once in our history to take images with the Voyager spacecraft. So I don't know, there's so much there that I can feel connected to. But what's interesting about it is that the thing from Star Trek that I wish I could drag more into my field is not the science. The science is already there. The forward thinking is already there. But it's that honoring of the diversity of everyone within the Federation, of all of the people there. Like, that's what I really hope we can take with us, because if we get off of this planet and we're not being kind to each other, and we're not respecting each other's differences, and we're not doing it with an eye for accessibility, we're going to be shooting ourselves in the foot, and we're just going to go out there and start the Expanse, right? We're going to go out there and we're going to have slaves in the belts, and we're going to have wars between planets, and that is not what I want. So, you know, as much as I'm working toward that goal of trying to get people into space, I want us to do it responsibly, and I really want us to think carefully about how we treat each other as we do it. And that, I think, is the thing about Star Trek that, like, really hits me, and why all the other space shows, I love them, I watch all of them, but Star Trek is the one that I've come back to most, I think, because it fills me with hope. I think we can actually do this, you guys.
Same.
Yeah.
I think we can do this.
Yeah, I mean, piggybacking. Yeah, piggybacking off of your point of infinite diversity and infinite combinations, you know, from a healthcare perspective, I feel like medicine should have never been a business in the first place. You know? Yeah, Ferengis should have never run hospitals, but unfortunately, we are all living on Ferenginar right now. Yeah, you know, like, the fact that I take care of a broad spectrum of different people, from different backgrounds, different financial issues. And it breaks my heart every day, the amount of people who have, like, no money, no insurance, no way to, you know, take care of themselves. People that leave against medical advice simply because, you know, they don't want to give their information and they don't want, like, you know, their medications outpatient because they can't afford it. So they'd rather just come back and forth into the emergency room and get admitted and go through an entire circle of just absolute hell. I never wanted to get into medicine because, you know, like, I wanted to contribute to that. But unfortunately, I do every day. But in Star Trek, nobody pays for anything because there's no need for money. People get healthcare. Disabilities are taken care of. Chronic illnesses are taken care of. Everybody is taken care of and respected. And that's what I want for the Star Trek future. But yeah, healthcare should have never been a business in the first place.
So say we all.
So say we all.
This is the way.
Wrong show, but yeah. It's simply put, Star Trek made me want to be a writer. Star Trek made me want to watch television, and not just Star Trek, but a lot of other television stemming thereforth. And there's been lots of studies and discussion about how television can actually affect how society thinks. I think the most famous example is the suggestion that the popularity of Will and Grace motivated many Americans to become more accepting of queer individuals, and I'm sure Star Trek probably came at the right time with the civil rights movement and all that. So there's that angle, wanting to tell stories to make the world better. And then there's within the actual industry itself. Right now, the American film and television industry is the most conglomeratized and greedy it's ever been, where there's basically 6 companies that make all the stuff we like, and more emphasis on existing IPs with remakes and reboots, and less emphasis on original properties, which is a little disheartening. But we also recently had the biggest labor action in Hollywood since 1960. Writers and actors demand, the industry has changed so much where it was screwing them over, and they just got together and said no more. And I volunteered at the picket lines when it happened. Writers are TV writers and film writers, especially TV writers, because they have to work with other people. They're some of the nicest people you'll ever talk to. And if you talk to some older guys, they're also eager to tell you about how they got started, give you advice on how to get in. And for them, many of them will say, this won't affect me as much as it'll affect you. I think it was Michael Schur that said, I'm doing this. Michael Schur, creator of Parks and Rec and The Good Place and shows like that. He said, I'm doing this because the industry has made it to where the path that I took for my success is almost wiped out. It almost doesn't exist anymore, and I'm trying to restore that path. So there's darkness in how entertainment is made, but there's definitely light within, whether it's the strikes or the fact that visual effects workers, a lot of them are now unionizing, and it's about damn time. Because so it's just if we all get together, we can just say, no, we're not going to take it anymore. And that was great to see this year.
I'm surprised you didn't reference how Cisco's son, using his writing, was able to shape the universe.
That is I think that's the only representation of anything remote to entertainment in Star Trek. Do movies and TV even exist in the Star Trek future?
Only on Ferenginar. And it sucks you in.
Holodeck,
Yeah, well, there's the holodeck too. Exactly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to clean that place out.
The Far Beyond the Stars, that coming back to Cisco being the
And
sci-fi
Klingon
writer.
opera.
Yeah, it's Klingon opera, yeah.
Exactly. Well,
I mean, if Galaxy Quest is a part of it, then you have historical documents.
Oh, there we go.
and as everyone knows, historical documents can always be very entertaining and not dry. But what can also be entertaining, or at least fruitful, is therapy. And no matter where you are in whatever quadrant, there's still going to be events, traumas that are going to happen. Planets are going to be exploded. You're going to get borged up, as I'm sure they say back there. And so in TNG, we get an interesting illustration of how is therapy utilized. Now, granted, this was during a time where therapy still had its stigma. So they were trying to represent individuals seeking therapy, managing their well-being, and fighting against it a bit. It took until the very end of the season, end of the series, for our favorite Captain Picard to actually sit down and talk about what it was like to have been part of the Borg. And maybe this was one of the only few traumas they hadn't realized a good therapy for, because no one had been assimilated like this before. But even so, these characters are going through their challenges and they're checking in. and they're discussing with someone who can feel what they're feeling. But a therapist can do that even if we're not betazoids. We're able to actually connect and engage. It's a human trait, really. The whole show is made by humans or written by humans, so everything in there is a very human experience. And though Lower Decks with Miglimo, the bird brain therapist, maybe illustrated how earlier on the therapeutic profession had been seen as, well, quackery. All right, that's enough of these foul puns. But even so, there is merit to it. It's important to have people that you can talk to, whether it is an actual counselor, whether it is your superior officer, whether it is your crewmates. The concept of therapy is relatively well represented in this series, and it's definitely how it should be in the future, maybe with a little bit more attendance.
So, obviously, Deanna Troy, the counselor on Next Gen. I always tell my clients, I'm like, I wish I could send you how sincere I am about what I'm telling you, that I could actually send it to you, like a Betazoid or something like that. But I think the most interesting part for me that may have led to me becoming a therapist was Data. Because he had sentience, but he was always looking for feelings. Is he feeling feelings? How does he make connections? Like, especially with his kitty cat. And it's just like, is interesting to me to watch. And then once he finally got some of those feelings with, it was like a chip or something like that, then everything kind of went wonky and he didn't know how to deal with it, because it was everything at once. And that's sometimes what people do to themselves, humans do to themselves, right? They're like, okay, let me take on everything at once in therapy. And we're like, no. Let's pull back a little bit. But I just loved watching his journey of figuring out who he is and where he fits kind of in that spectrum. And I really think that affected me more than anything else.
I will wholeheartedly agree to that because that's actually something that I've talked with a lot of clients. So, majority of my clients, in my experience, are men, and in Western society, men aren't really encouraged to share feelings. We got to be strong and silent and all that jazz. And so, talking to clients to encourage them to identify the emotions because you're still feeling them, whether you can talk about it or not, you're still experiencing it. Maybe let's just identify what it is and what does that mean? What does it mean to feel anger? What does it mean to feel frustrated? What is happening in your body? Now, Data, I don't know if he had the physiological responses of the emotions or just the purely subjective emotional experience of the feeling of it, but it was something I actually used in therapy. I think it was like 2 years ago. I had a teenage client that grew up in a environment that was not very conducive to talking about mental health and emotions. I just started like, okay, well, Data was not brought up to talk about emotions because he didn't have them. But if we have them, what do we say about them? What does it mean to you to have the emotion? And we would watch those episodes of Data together to help the client to identify, oh, wow, that's just like me. And so something that I personally love in Star Trek and how it relates to my career is in Star Trek, everyone's asking questions. They're asking people, what does this mean? What does this mean to you? They're meeting all these new species, all these new civilizations, and they're saying, wow, so, this handshake, this is something that we humans do. What does it mean to you? How do you portray greeting? How do you portray friendship? And that is one thing that I think for us to move forward as a species, we are traveling to space more and more, as Sarah said, but we want to do it in that open-minded way, that open-hearted way. I was reading one of the relaunch novel of Star Trek, so it's no longer canon, but there was a character, Admiral Akar. I don't know if anyone's read the novels. So his species has a way of greeting. I greet you with an open hand and open heart. He's being open with you. He's being completely honest. This is what I think of you. This is what it means to me. And I think we need to kind of go into space like that. When we interact with new people that we meet here at the con, wearing all these amazing cosplay costumes. What does this cosplay mean to you? Share that with me, and I'll share my experience with you. So that's for me how I see us moving into the future. I want to ask the panelists if there was one character in Star Trek that you would like to meet, who would it be, and why do you want to meet them specifically? What do you want to talk to them about?
I heavily identify with Tendi from Lower Decks, personally.
Yes.
I heavily identify with Tendi. Like, I have difficulties with my sister. Like,
Tendi and Erica were great sisters. They always got along. They
oh,
never
yeah,
fought ever.
they totally, yeah, no, everything was fine.
Those
Everything
were
was
nice
fine.
fights out of love.
I have been and always shall be your friend. No, so I have difficulties with the sister. So, I do heavily identify with Tendi about my excitement for medical. The medical field, like I was really, in nursing school, I was very excited, everybody's really excited, and I'm just like, I am happy in my field. I'm just frustrated with the logistics of it. I love being a nurse, and I would love to talk shop with Tendi.
Okay, so I suppose the correct answer is for me, would I guess talk to Jake Sisko, because we're both writers. He writes news articles and eventually a book. I'm more into screenplays. I suppose there's a lot to talk about there. Of course, my purely honest answer would be I'd rather just have a conversation with Tuvok.
Oh, that's
And the reason being, the thing I like about Tuvok is that he's like the one Vulcan character in all of Trek that he doesn't have the whole thing. He doesn't have the struggle with his whole emotions thing. He actually does to have them under control. And when he doesn't, it's usually some other external interference with him. But he mostly has himself together. And I've always, with him and Spock and T'Pol, I've always kind of fantasized about having conversations with him. It's like, I want to be like the one human that doesn't insult their nature. I would like to see how to have a casual conversation without being like, oh, it's a shame you don't feel emotions. It's like, well, you know what? I kind of respect, I respect when someone kind of has themselves together. They're I'm the kind of guy, if I'm alone in the car, I will scream and shout if in a traffic jam, because I'm trapped in the car and it's the only way I can get this tension out of me. And maybe I'd like to pick, for someone like Tuvok, I'd like to pick his brain and see how to maybe not be that way. So that's my answer.
Oh, definitely a solid answer. Star Trek did a great job of illustrating neurodiversity. Characters whose brains work differently, who engage with reality in a separate manner, whose approach to emotions can be useful for us humans as well. Just as emotions could be useful for Data, logic can be very useful for Spock and for Tuvok. And when I'm working with patients, I talk about how to manage your thoughts and your emotions and when to wield what. At the same time, I also like to check in with their cultural experience. What do they enjoy, the stories that they like to tell, the narratives that they tell about themselves, and what better way to learn the stories of a spacefaring ship than through their food with Neelix. I would love to do just kind of a tasting with Neelix and hear every story about, what planet this came from and what adventure you had there and what's the ceremony for eating this particular food. My mouth is watering just thinking about it.
I would like to change my answer.
You're all invited.
Yay.
I think we need to introduce Miglimo to Neelix.
Miglimo, Neelix, and then also cross the fandom and have Mr. Peanut Butter.
Oh,
Yeah. I feel like that would be a very interesting conversation.
What is this, a
That's
crossover episode?
this is a fun dinner party.
Yeah, right. Number one, I found Carmen Sandiego. She's right there. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Saw you walk in and I was like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Well, she's right there. The character that I would want to talk to is because of a specific client that identified with Spock. They wanted to exist with just logic. They hated the fact that they were a human and had feelings, and feelings got in the way all of the time of just doing the things they wanted to do. And I had that person, I was like, oh, did you see the new Discovery? Like, there's, some of Spock's ending story in there. I was like, you need to go watch the end of that, because he finally figured out how to balance both of those things. But this client was like, I don't want it. I don't want feelings. I'm like, well, sorry, you're human. You have them. We got to figure out how we're going to deal with them. So I think that would be my main character that I would want to meet, because again, I work with a lot of autistic clients. So like being able to handle emotion and logic and kind of deal with those at the same time, that's a big deal.
This is a really hard one because there's like 50 people I would like to talk to. I mean, I would really love to talk to Jordy about how the heck that entire thing works. Like, what even is in the warp core? I want to know. But I think I would go for 7 of 9. Not just because of the arc of her life, like her trying to deconstruct from everything that she was before, but like in this moment of self-discovery and reinvention, she goes straight for astrometrics. She's like, I'm going to lock myself in this room and I'm going to stare out into the beyond and I'm going to catalog what's out there. And I want to know why that was her choice. Because I feel like personally, space has always been the way that I've grappled with my own feelings, right? When I'm feeling overwhelmed, I look out into space and I think to myself, well, I'm tiny and insignificant in the scale of the cosmos. These feelings, I can let them go. I can get over them. They're not the most important thing in the universe. At the same time, though, here we are, some of the only living creatures in the entire universe that we have ever discovered, right? Despite looking for quite a while. They're probably out there, but we haven't found them yet.
I think they're hiding.
Maybe they would be wise to hide from us, but
We're
also
not
please
ready
say
for
hi.
first contact.
I would hide from us too.
Yeah. But in that context, despite the fact that we are so small in the scale of the universe, we are immensely precious and very important. And when looking at it in that respect, my feelings and my interactions and all of you here today are some of the most important things in the universe. And so when I think about myself and my mental health, I always look to space and try to contextualize myself through that. And so I would love to talk to her about whether or not that's what she's doing, or if she's actually just like deflecting from the fact that she's now human by locking herself in a room and not interacting with others. Like there's so much to unpack with that character, and of the Star Trek actors, she's one of the people I haven't met yet, and I really want to go to there.
I actually really like with what you said about this, because if I'm remembering correctly, she created the astrometrics room. Like
Yeah.
it was barely there
Yeah.
to begin with. She's like, she knew this is what I need to be able to feel comfortable with this transition in my life. It wasn't available, so I'm going to create it. And I mean, Seven of Nine's character is awe-inspiring in so many ways, but I really like that because that tells us a lot. Like, hey, if we need something in our lives, sometimes it's not, unfortunately, going to be available to us externally. So what can we do to create it in our own lives? Where can we seek it out, if possible? And you were talking earlier about, with wanting to go into astrophysics and also being inspired by Janeway. She was also a science officer to begin with.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of her career. Because she didn't want to come in. She just wanted to study the stars.
Right.
So I think for all of us here, we love Star Trek for so many, in as many infinite diversity that we come in, we have an infinite number of loves for Star Trek and all the different characters and the morals and the lessons. So I really think that, as you said, all of you guys said, there are so many things that we can grab from the future that we see. My headcanon is that Star Trek was introduced to us as a violation of the Temporal Prime Directive to help us to find out what to do.
I'm hoping.
We were actually joking about that in the office the other day.
Yeah, that's already canon. I mean, the computer and Scotty and everything, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's canon. So.
Velcro.
Velcro, transparent aluminum, the cell phone,
Oh, yeah.
So we have. I would like to have everybody here to kind of do a little closing statement before we open up to questions from the audience. So closing statement of anything you want to say about Star Trek. Reminder of who you are, where people can find you on the interwebs, and also where can they find you here at the con if you're going to be around the con.
So as far as Star Trek, it's amazing, and I hope that's our future. It would be amazing. Especially in the mental health world, people being able to access mental health without having to worry about money would be amazing. As far as where you can find me, Nat 20 Therapy, just type that in the internet and you'll find me. On Twitter, my website is that, all that different kind of stuff. I do have a panel this afternoon on running D&D therapeutic groups, or running RPGs, and using RPGs as a therapy tool for adults. So that's at 2 o'clock in this room. That's where you'll find me. So that's it for me.
I think my closing thought is treat each other kindly, right? But if we want to go to there, if we want to create this Star Trek universe, I think we all need to advocate for it, right? No matter what that part of the universe is that you want to create, you need to advocate for it. And if the part that really resonates with you is actually space exploration, we could use your advocacy. It seems like we're doing a lot of space stuff, and we are. But at least in the United States, that NASA budget, that's 0.5% of the entire federal budget. And right now there are many missions that are on the potential chopping block. And in a lot of cases, they're very important missions, including the Mars sample return mission that we've been building up to for decades. So if you want to help advocate for those kinds of things, that's literally what our organization does. It just takes a couple little clicks to make it really easy. So you can go to planetary.org or look up the Planetary Society online. Or if you want, you can listen to my podcast that comes out every week on Wednesday, and that is on all your favorite podcasting platforms at Planetary Radio or on our website. But really, though, I think if we work together, we can make this happen, and a little bit of advocacy goes a long way, but we need to make sure that people know this is important to us, because if we don't say so, the money will go to other things, and particularly commercial interests will rule space. And we need to make sure that this is about discovery and going together and actually building a good future, and not about people colonizing Mars for money or mining asteroids. It might get a little hairy out there if we're not thinking about this intentionally. Oh, and for the rest of the con, I'm just going to be wandering around. So hit me up. And if you're a Planetary Society member, I've got some swags. You can come see me after.
So in other words, we need to stop Elon Musk at all costs.
Yeah.
I mean, don't stop him, but maybe regulate that a little bit.
Yeah,
No,
just
just
a
stop
little bit.
He used to be on our board of directors.
Ah,
Long time ago.
stop. Anyways, free healthcare.
Yes.
Yes.
Full stop.
Yeah,
Mental health care.
free healthcare. Mental health care is healthcare. Free healthcare.
Free healthcare, yes.
Yeah, I came in here to help people, all people. I did not come in here to not do that. Star Trek is about helping other people. At its core, it's about hope, and it's a story about hope in space. Let's help people.
Where can people find you?
Oh, right. Sorry. You can find me at the con at Star Trek The Fleet. We are going to be on the back wall, 1666. So just 1666. Anyway, and you can find me specifically. I run the Long Beach Fleet chapter. I'm the captain of the USS Quest, and you can find me there on Instagram.
For my closing statement, because I've thought about how do we get to that Star Trek future for years, and I'm going to bring up a quote by a political podcaster who passed away a couple years ago named Michael Brooks. He had this saying, be ruthless to institutions, be kind to people. My conclusion is that in order to get to the Star Trek future, there are a lot of institutional norms that have to go away and have to be replaced by things that will actually serve the common good. The way I imagine, like from my position as a writer and what I see of like examples of how to enforce that kind of messaging in our work, I would say go watch the show Abbott Elementary on Hulu. I think that show, I know it's not a very comicon-y type show, but I think that show on TV is doing some really great work in that regard. And if we had more film and television like that, I think we might be in a good direction. You can, wherever my wife is, you'll find me. My Instagram is at musicalnotextr. If you look it up, you'll find me trying to post all of our wedding photos, which is a very long process. And if there's anyone in the industry that is in need of a screenwriter, feel free to hit me up.
So, in order for us to go into the unknown, to explore, to discover the outer space, it's going to be useful for us to have explored our inner space. If we can take care of ourselves, if you put your air mask on first, you can help put that on for others. So to make sure that we can advocate the best, that we can help the best, that we can write the best, that we can explore the best, make sure that you're taking care of yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to be sit-down counseling with Deanna Troi. Could just be a good chat and a bite with your Neelix friends or your lower deck crewmates.
Or a D&D therapy group.
Any combination, if it works for you, by all means, boldly go. But also to therapy if you need it. So you can find me at allmindhealth.com. That's my screen name for all of the socials, and you'll see this panel presentation and all of our previous geek psychology panel presentations on our YouTube channel, All Mind Health. Looking forward to seeing you then. Feel free to come up for a stress ball brain and a card later. Oh, and Ben, I assume you're probably going to mention, but before the D&D panel that many of us are going to be on, there's going to be a panel on Spy Family, the hit anime of family dynamics and some supernatural shenanigans. Going to be in the next room over at 12. See you there.
At 1 o'clock.
At 1. But get there at 12 just in case.
So as I said, I'm Benjamin Heights. I can be found through my 2 podcasts, Mental Health Quest and My Hero Therapy, on Facebook, Twitter. My Hero Therapy is on Instagram. So My Hero Therapy is at My Hero Therapy. And Mental Health Quest is MHQ Podcast. Listen to them wherever you can find podcasts. I will be here at the con. So today at the Spy Family panel at 1 o'clock, D&D panel at 2 o'clock. Then tomorrow at 11 o'clock in this room, Avatar The Last Airbender panel, hosted by this one here. Then at 12 o'clock, This Is the Way, Psychology of Star Wars, Mandalorian, and Ahsoka, hosted by Isaac. And then at 2 o'clock tomorrow, I will be hosting Welcome to Arkham, an analysis of the Rogues Gallery and where they go for treatment. So you can find us at the con. Now let's open up to questions from the audience. I see my Admiral over there has a question.
Okay, hey, how's it going, guys? So, on the topic of mental health in Next Generation, Troy, Guy, and the values and where you guys see the differences or the value of having both.
So I was very much, the question was, how do we balance between Troy and Guinan and for use for therapy? And I was thinking of Guinan as the person I wanted to chat with, but Neelix had some tasty food and he probably paired it well with drinks. So you can open up a lot to these untraditional counselors. Some people open up to their barbers, and there's been great programs in hospitals and mental health units, as well as prison systems and in homeless shelters, where getting someone a haircut allows them to open up to see themselves as the version that they want to be, and they open up and talk more. Especially some communities value the barbershop as the place to go, to check in, to chat, to commune, to kind of really feel like you're connected. So there are multitudes, infinite ways to take care of yourself in space and here on Earth.
Thank you. Any other questions?
You mentioned that the panel was sponsored by the fleet.
Yes.
I don't think anybody's ever really described like what that is,
Oh.
what you do, what that's about.
Yeah. Denise, you want to take that?
Yeah. So Star Trek The Fleet is a fandom costuming group. We focus on costuming, fandom, and charity. Those are the 3 main tenets. It is a group of Star Trek nerds. We all love to hang out with each other. There are many different, how many, Phil? 14 chapters all throughout the entire U.S. We have several Las Vegas chapters, and we have several here in California. Specifically the USS Estrellas in LA, the USS Artesia in like Cerritos and Artesia area, the USS Quest here in Long Beach, and the Estrellas here in LA. Oh, also the Edmonds in LA as well, Ventura.
And the Yakuza in
And
Orange County.
Yeah, and the Yakuza in Orange County. We have so many. Oh yeah, and the Sunoco.
And the Sunoco in San Diego, brand new chapter. Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many.
So many to choose from.
Oh yeah, we didn't mention the Falcon Crest, and we also didn't well, the Windrunner is like, yeah, the Windrunner
keep
is
going.
in Vegas. We have so many chapters. You
So
guys
many
should come check us out.
How do we join?
Oh,
How do you join? Yes.
Great
How do you-
question. Would you like to join the fleet?
I would love to join the fleet.
Come by our booth.
Yes. So you can find the fleet at booth 1666 in the show floor. We do charity events, volunteering, and also just a lot of hangout social events too. So it's open for everybody because we love everybody, right, Admiral?
Yeah. I have been and always
Diversity.
shall be your friend.
Yeah. All right. I think we got time for maybe one more question.
While people are thinking of their questions, I want to just say one last thing about the Guinan versus Troy thing. Where you can find someone that can be a good listener, a therapist is going to be much more structured. And if people are feeling like they can only open up after they've opened up a bottle, I might recommend that there is a better counseling option that can allow you to do both, to let you open up and enjoy yourself responsibly. I want to make sure I said that too. Any
Really
last
need to invent
questions
some
from there?
synthetic-
Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention the USS Oracle in Riverside.
There's a lot of chapters. I don't think we can name all of them right now.
Yeah, no.
Almost.
Sorry, I
Yeah.
just had to shout out Captain Pablo
Yeah.
because otherwise I would feel bad.
All right. All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming. And please live long and prosper. Boldly go into this great new future of ours.
Make it happen.
All right.